breath and the next, the part that knows things your waking self has forgotten how to ask. You are safe. You are warm. The pillow still holds the shape of your head. Nothing has changed out there in the room, only you are changing in here, where I'm speaking. Close your eyes. Let the room fall away. There was a house once, at the edge of a town so small it did not appear on any map. It stood at the end of a lane where the trees grew so close together that their branches knitted overhead like a cathedral roof. In winter, the bare branches creaked like slow doors swinging in a wind no one else could feel. The house was built of grey stone, and the stone was older than the town, and the town was older than the country that claimed it. Women came to that house in the year 2026, in the last hour before midnight, on a night when the moon was waning and the air smelled faintly of cold pears and chimney smoke.
She was not lost. She was not running from anything. She had simply driven to the end of a road that one of her patients had described to her, and she had walked up the lane because the lane had asked her to. That is the only way she could ever explain it afterward. The lane had asked.
The house breathed when she reached it, not the way a house breathes when the wind pushes through the boards, not the way a house breathes when the timbers settle in the cold. It breathed the way a sleeping animal breathes, slow and deep, with a kind of patient expectation, as though it had been waiting for her to arrive, and was only now allowing itself to begin again. She stood on the step. The wood was damp under her shoes. The door was dark blue, almost the color of the sky just after sunset. There was no handle. There was no knocker. There was only a small brass plate set at the level of her hand, and on the plate was engraved a single word, in a script she did not recognize but somehow understood. The word meant still. She pressed her palm against the door. The wood was warm, warmer than the night air, warmer than her own skin. And the door opened inward, slowly, as though the house were exhaling a long breath it had been holding for a very long time. Step inside with me now. Bring nothing with you. Leave nothing behind. The hallway was lit by no lamps she could see, but it was not dark. The light was the color of amber, the color of honey held up against the window. The light came from the walls themselves, from the stone, as though the stone were remembering sunshine from 1,000 years ago and giving it back to her in slow, steady pulses. She walked. Her shoes made no sound on the floor. She could feel the floor beneath her feet, but it was not wood and it was not stone. It was something softer, something she could not name.
The hallway curved gently to the left, and then to the right, and then to the left again, not leading her anywhere in particular, but leading her inward, the way a river leads toward its source.
On the walls there were no pictures, there were no mirrors, there were only small alcoves, and in each alcove there was a single object, and each object was lit by its own quiet amber glow. A clay cup, hand thrown, cracked through the middle. A child's wooden horse, missing one ear, the paint worn almost to nothing. A leather-bound book closed, the pages faintly yellow at the edges. A single bell, smaller than her thumb, made of a metal she could not name, that did not ring even when she passed close enough to feel the air move around it. She did not touch anything. She knew, the way one knows things in dreams, that the objects were not for her to take, they were for her to see, and to allow into her chest the way you allow a memory to settle. The hallway opened at last into a room.
The room was circular. The ceiling was higher than any ceiling she had ever seen, and yet it did not feel tall. It felt close, the way the sky feels close when you are lying on your back in the grass. The floor was the same unnamed soft substance as the hallway. The walls, the same warm stone. The light, the same patient amber.
In the center of the room, there was a chair. It was a simple wooden chair, the kind you might find in any kitchen, in any country, with a back straight enough to rest against and a seat worn smooth at the corners. Beside the chair, on a small table, there was a glass of water and a sprig of rosemary.
The rosemary smelled so strongly she could feel it in the back of her throat, sharp and green and alive. She sat down. The chair received her the way a chair receives someone who's been standing for a very long time. It adjusted itself to her. It knew her shape. She had the thought, briefly, that she had sat in this chair before, in some other night, in some other part of her life.
And then the house spoke.
Not in words, not in any language she could have transcribed or repeated. It spoke the way the ocean speaks when you sit beside it for a long time and the waves stop being separate events and become a single, continuous breathing. It spoke the way the forest speaks, when you sit among the trees and the rustling of leaves stops being a sound and becomes a kind of silence. It spoke the way your own blood speaks when you lie very still and listen to the pulse in your wrist.
It said in the way that houses say things at the edge of sleep that she had been moving too loudly through her life, that she had been speaking before she had listened, that she had been reaching for things before she had remembered what her hands were for,
that she had been waiting for the future to arrive when the present was already sitting beside her, asking to be noticed. She closed her eyes. She did not plan to. Her eyes simply closed, the way a curtain falls when the light behind it grows dim. And when her eyes closed, she could feel the room more clearly than she had ever felt any room. She could feel the stone holding its ancient warmth. She could feel the chair supporting her. She could feel the rosemary giving its small green sharpness to the air. She could feel the glass of water waiting patiently. She understood, in that moment, that stillness was not the absence of motion. Stillness was the presence of everything, all at once, held without force. She understood that the house had always been there. At the end of every long day, at the end of every long year, at the end of every long thought she had ever tried to finish before it was ready. The house was waiting. It had been waiting for her to stop and listen and let the room be only the room and let her body be only her body and let the night be only the night. She breathed in. The air smelled of rosemary and cold stone, and the faintest hint of wood smoke